The boy hesitated, remembering the stories he'd heard from his father, remembering the legends about what had happened in that building so many years ago. Terrible things that could only be spoken of in whispers. No one knew if the legends were really true. As he stared at the building, he began to feel as if the other boys, the village boys, were still watching him, challenging him, laughing at him because they knew he didn't have the courage to go inside. Always before, when he'd stood here contemplating the old building, he'd eventually lost his nerve and turned away. But today would be different. Ignoring the knot of fear that now burned hot in his belly, he left the railroad tracks and scrambled down the slope of the roadbed. He started along a weed-choked path that paralleled the side of the building. Halfway along the wall, he came to a small door, covered over with weathered boards that had long since shrunken with age. Through the gaps between the boards, he could make out the door itself, held closed only by a padlock on a rusted hasp. Gingerly he tested one of the boards. The corroded nails groaned for a second, then gave way. A moment later, 2 more boards lay on the ground at the boy's feet. The boy reached out and grasped the padlock. He paused, knowing that if it gave way, he would then be committed to go inside. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip, and twisted. The rusted hasp held for a moment, then broke loose. The lock, free from the door it had guarded so long, lay in the boy's hand. He stared at it for several long seconds, almost wishing he had left it in place. Then, struggling against a strange fear he could feel growing within him, the boy pushed the door open and squirmed through the gap left by the 3 planks he had torn away. For a moment, the deep shadows blinded him, but then his eyes adjusted to the dim light of the interior and he looked around. Inside, the building seemed even larger than it looked from the outside, and emptier. Except, the boy realized, it didn't feel empty at all. Somewhere, he was certain, there was someone or something lurking within these walls, waiting for him. Almost against his will, his eyes began exploring the old building. Emptiness stretched away in all directions, and far above him, just visible in the shadowed light that barely penetrated the immense space, the tangled iron struts supporting the roof seemed to reach down to him, as if trying to grasp him in their skeletal arms. In the silence, the boy could hear the pounding of his own heart. Suddenly, a cacophony of sound filled the enormous building, and the boy felt a scream rising in his throat. He choked it back at the last second, then forced himself to look up. A flock of pigeons, frightened by the boy's intrusion, had burst from their nests and now wheeled beneath the roof. As the boy watched, they began settling once more into their nests. Seconds later, silence once more cast an eerie spell over the vast emptiness. The boy gazed into the gloom and saw, far away at the back of the building, the top of a flight of stairs. Beneath him, then, was not simply a solid floor. Below this floor, there was a basement. The stairs seemed to beckon to him, to demand that he come and explore that which lay beneath. The boy's heart began pounding once more, and a cold sweat broke out on his back. Suddenly, he could stand the silence no longer. "No, I won't!" His voice, far louder than he had intended, echoed back to him, and once again the pigeons milled madly among the rafters, fluttering in confusion. Gasping, the boy shrank back against the reassuring solidity of the brick wall. But when the silence came once more, the compelling fascination of those downward-leading stairs gripped him once again. He forced his fear down. Slowly, he began moving toward the back of the building. He had moved only a few yards when suddenly the boy felt his skin crawl. Something, he was certain, was watching him. He tried to ignore it, keeping his eyes on the far wall, but the strange sensation wouldn't go away. The hair on the back of his neck was standing up now, and he could feel goosebumps covering his arms. He could stand it no longer and whirled around to face whatever was behind him. Nothing. His eyes